Hey everybody, it's Andy here, AK Montolio. We're back for another Vintage League. Today we're playing a spicy one. We've got 5 color shops, and I really don't know how good a deck this is. I've played it a little bit, and you know, I think you'd have a difficult time convincing me it's just better than Golo shops. But you do catch some people with some surprise plays with some of the main deck inclusions in this deck. So let's start out here and see how we do. We've got Giganta. Yep. All right. See if I can remember. We've got Giganta, and we won the die roll. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is certainly a keepable hand. So I think the highest payoff here is for us to play Karn the Great Creator turn one, turning off any type of mocks and shenanigans my opponent has and making them play fair. Um, Obviously, if this gets Force of Will, that's not great, but we have a very strong follow-up in Karn's Scion of Urza, as well as the option to Wasteland next turn, potentially. So I think we're in a pretty decent spot here. Gonna lead with Mana Crypt, and let's see if we get our Karn into play. And we did. Now let's take a look at our sideboard. What does Karn give us here? So we've got a Lattice next turn. Of note, my opponent did not do anything to us here with reference to a force, so it's possible that we may be able to Mycosynth Lattice next turn. That said, I'm not going to put my Karn within Lightning Bolt range. We can do this next turn, so I'm just actually going to pump my Karn up here, and next turn we can try and go get a Lattice as an option. We'll just keep our sideboard up here. Okay. So at this stage in the game, I mean, I am going to attempt to get the Lattice and cast it. It just wins the game, right? If my opponent can't do anything. I think the likelihood of this resolving is probably not great, but we're going to try. Okay, so game ended there. So that is reminiscent of the old Karn Forge decks back in the day where it was 4 Karn, 4 Mystic Forge, and of course that was a very common kill condition was the Mycosynth Lattice out of the board. Far more justifiable back with 4 Karns in your deck. Now, it's not personally my style to run Mycosynth Lattice with 1 Karn. I'm always loath to take up the sideboard slot, but I am playing someone else's deck with some of my own changes here. So, um, anyways, we'll take that game one win. I of course not sure what we're playing against. I do believe this player is a breach player, so we could bring in Choke here. I also think that. Null Rod could be very good against them. I also think Pyroblast is very reasonable, and I also think Soul Guide Lantern is reasonable. Now, of course, you don't play Soul Guide Lantern and Null Rod together typically. It's not a good combo, so I think we can cut the Null Rod here. What else do we want to get rid of? I do like Sundering Titan. I don't actually think Sphinx of the Steel one is very good in this particular matchup. Buried Rune, okay. It's okay. I probably don't feel like we need that. I feel like Sorcerer's Spyglass is not at its best in this matchup, but it does stop Dack Fayden if they are running Dack Fayden. We need to make a couple more cuts here. I feel like balance probably is not at the best here. Could also see cutting something like Goblin Welder. Let's try that. Maybe Welder's okay. I've got the recursion with Emery already. Of Of course, I am not actually sure what we're playing against. We saw a flooded strand there, so I don't think it's too much of a problem to kind of spitball a little bit as to what the proper approach is. I could also see cutting a smokestack on the draw as well. Well, that's a stinker, isn't it? So they've mulliganed, and we are going to mulligan as well. Oh, I should have cut Tabernacle. I think this is a keep, and I'm going to put Tabernacle away. You know, if they get their mentor going or something like that, it's not the worst having it in our deck, but certainly I would have kept something else in the deck over it for sure. Oh, that's a nice draw, actually. See if we can resolve the Sol Ring. Okay, we're going to attempt to do a Time Walk here. And Time Walk resolves. It's stuff like that that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. Like sometimes your opponents just don't expect it. You know, like you're casting a blue card out of your. So unfortunately, I can't quite Golos here and cast Crucible, but I think that's okay. Let's see if my opponent lets this resolve or not. You know, having the Crucible here, this could be very good for us if it does resolve, because we can go and get a Strip Mine. So this looks like a Sabotage. Oh, Brainstorm, okay. And it resolves. Okay, I'm just going to go and get a Strip Mine here. I don't think you know, we could get Caracas and be a little bit greedy, but I think that's all right. We get the Strip Mine. All right, so they got basics galore here. Probably getting Spreed. Oh no, Lotus, okay. So we are going to probably be getting Spreed here for the full amount, which actually works out okay as long as they don't have a Force of Will. Attack Fate. Okay. So Dak is slightly problematic, only in the sense that we can't really pressure it. They've got our Golos here. Maybe we're going to have to try and get Giganta into play here. Pithing Needle on Strip Mine. Okay. So, got punished here a little bit. I mean, the Black Lotus was very strong. Oh, interesting. My opponent uh, okay, well, I mean, look, I'm definitely casting Crucible here. Sure, they can pump their Karn up or their Dak and try and steal it, but it's going to take a couple turns, and I'm going to tax their lands doing that. 1, 2, 3. And then I replay the Strip Mine. I also have the option of the Inventor's Fair here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can go get Inventor's Fair. And do I have the ability to stop Dak here? I guess getting a Caracas off another Golos is not bad. Well, I mean, first things first, let's get rid of. I am going to take both their lands. Look, they're gonna get the Crucible going. There's not much I can do about that. Like, what can I get with the Inventor's Fair that helps here? I mean, one awkward line that we actually have here is we could go next turn and get ourselves uh, a Soul Guide Lantern, nullifying the Crucible that they're going to try and steal. So I am going to just cast this Chromatic Lantern here. And we cannot bring this back this turn, but yep. So what can we do here? We could rip a Pyroblast. Pyroblast will kill Dak. We could rip a Karakas to bounce back our Golos here and recast it, which would be solid. We can return Jegantha back to our hand. We can also Inventor's Fair. And we have 4 mana with which to cast something, which is not the worst. Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor is pretty good. I can go and get a Pyroblast. I think this is fine. Three ball's actually pretty good too, but I'd get 3 ball later. So is Ancestral. But I'm just going to get the Pyroblast here and see if I can get this to work. Get rid of Dak here. Once again, you know, I don't know if the opponent's going to be able to stop a Pyroblast. Evidently not. We're going to get a Strip Mine here. We're going to return this back to our hand. And yeah, I mean, there's not much I can do against the Scalding Tarn here. I will hit it at the end of their turn next turn if they don't do anything, setting up a next turn where I can strip mine their land. So I'm 2 for 1 in myself, but of course I've got recurring strip mines, so it's not that big of a deal. Plan falters somewhat if my opponent is able to remove my Crucible. It's possible that they're sitting on hand in a Shattering Spree. We take 3. So that will not be required. They do have a play here, and this looks like a Shattering Spree. Yep. So we're going to take their land away here. And they got our Crucible, and that's okay. Karn Scion, okay. Cool. So why don't we cast that? Do we want card draw? I think I'm just going to do some card draw here. It's going to be hard for them to kill that. Okay, sphere resistance is very, very solid in this position here. Okay, make your move. Full disclaimer, I may not be playing this optimally here. There's a lot of choices I'm not accustomed to having, which are, amazing to have, but certainly do not have a lot of reps with this deck. And as a result, I don't need to tell you the byproduct of that can be you're not playing well in certain situations. Okay, well, I think in this particular situation, I'm going to make a construct and try and rebuild from there. And I'm going to cast Giganta. Yeah, I think that's fine. It's a 5/5, so it's pretty big. Make a red. Them two big 5/5s on the table. And hopefully our Karn doesn't die because it's really going to spur us ahead if we're able to continue using it. But I really wanted to be able to prevent it from dying from attacks, thus having two blockers out if they did have a removal for one. Excuse me. Okay, we'll take that.